Hello and welcome to Think Watercolour. For today's demonstration I want to show how you can take elements from a reference photo like this to make a more atmospheric scene. This is a photo I downloaded from Unsplash, and whilst it's a pleasing image I want to show just what you can do with a little imagination. I often use a quick sketch like this as preparation for a more finished work, and it's a good way to get your colours and values how you want them and to test that your composition is sound. My main focal point is going to be the moored fishing boat in the foreground, and the aim is to depict a scene with the background disappearing from view into the morning mist. I've sketched out the image, loosely defining the background houses and buildings and trees and the harbour wall. I've added masking fluid to retain the white of the paper on some sections of the foreground boat, which is the main focus of the painting. This is a mixture of cobalt blue and a touch of imperial purple for the misty sky, and I'm blending it into a mixture of cobalt blue and cerulean blue for the foreground sea. This is Saunders Waterford 300-gram rough white paper, by the way. Just blending in a little bit more of the purple into the midsection just to try and create that slightly darker section, and this is just using a flat brush just to darken where the sea wall is, or the harbour wall rather. Just trying to keep it very vague as it's supposed to be shrouded in mist. Just adding, while it's wet, just adding more pigment. Just trying to get it the way I want it. As I say, this is an initial sketch for a future painting, and it's a great way to test out colour ideas. Using the same mix for the ripples in the water in the foreground in front of the boat. As the ripples get further away, they get closer together and fainter, disappearing into the mist. I'm just trying to define some of the boats disappearing in the mist that are moored behind this foreground boat. Just adding a little bit more with a flat brush. I darkened the area behind the boat. Unfortunately the camera was out of focus for that section, but it's basically the same mixture, just adding a bit more strength. This is a touch of for the trees, I just added a touch of jadeite green, very loose mix for the trees, and then I'm strengthening some of the areas where I'm trying to indicate some buildings in the mist and the harbour wall. Basically using the same mix of cobalt blue and imperial purple in different strengths. Just putting a very watery mix on now and blending it into the sea. And I'm now going to dab it off with some clean paper towel just to create that idea of mist on the water. The waves in the ripples in the water in the foreground have dried, and I'm just darkening them just to bring them forward. Again, using the same mix, trying to keep it simple. This is cerulean blue for the underpainting of the hull on the boat, just as a background colour. I've just removed the masking fluid and I'm just starting to darken and define the shape of the hull on the boat. Just darkening the colour a little bit with a bit more cobalt blue, the cerulean blue, just to strengthen it. Using the same colour for the reflection in the water. Just making sure I get some loose ripples at the edges, and then as the point of the boat comes towards us. Just using some neutral tint mixed in with the cobalt blue mix, just for the defining some parts of the boat. Reflection in the glass on the wheelhouse and some of the uprights and stays. It's all a little vague. It's just, as I say, it's an initial sketch, just trying to get an idea of what I can do with this image to create a more atmospheric painting. Just using a rigger for these thinner lines, number 0 rigger. It's when you put the finishing touches with the darks in the foreground on the boats that brings the painting to life a little bit. This is pyrrole orange for the buoys hanging off the side of the boat, and one on the water there. Just trying to vary the shade on those buoys to give them a bit more definition. Just making sure I paint the reflection of the buoys hanging off the boat in the water. For the buoy in the mist, I've just dabbed some of the colour out so that it's less defined, disappearing into the mist. Just adding a little bit of white gouache here, dabbing off just to indicate some of the white reflection in the water as well from the boat around the edges of the hull. Just adding a few final touches of white gouache on the structure behind the wheelhouse. Just a few dabs of white just helps to define it. Bit of reflection here and there. We're just using white gouache to paint in the mooring rope and its reflection, and I'm just going to go over it with some neutral tint just to break up the whiteness of that mooring line. Just final touches really. And I think we're done. Thank you for watching this demonstration. As I say, it's just an initial sketch just to decide on how I'm going to paint a larger version of this. Having looked at it, I think I will probably change the foreground ripples in the waves to a more grey look. It's a very blue painting this, so I think I'll just kill some of the blue in the finished work, but other than that it's not too bad, an initial sketch. I hope you found this useful in showing what you can do with a reference photograph. You don't have to slavishly copy what's there. Please give it a like if you found it useful. Do subscribe and hit the notification button for future videos, and thanks again for watching.